Why, hello there, lovely listeners and viewers. You have come back down the red rabbit hole again. Not sure why. Oh, no, wait, I do know why. We have a return guest. We do. She got out and then she came back.
It was so good. I came again.
Yes.
It was semi-willingly. I think
Semi.
you could have run a little bit faster, Heather, and I wouldn't have got you. But I felt like you sort of faked a little trip and then went, oh no, I'm back down the rabbit
Yeah,
hole again.
I survived the last time, so
So we've got with us today, we've got Heather Critchlow, we've got the wonderful author Heather Critchlow, and we've also, of course, got Lisa, as per usual. Hello,
I'm here.
Lisa.
Hi.
And you all know me, I am author NB Peacock, otherwise known as Nicky. And we're doing a bit of a weird warren today. So when Heather was on with us, we we started on a topic that we thought no, and we just stopped it there and then, didn't we? And we kind of sidestepped back a little bit and thought this is a whole episode to itself. So today we're going to be talking about deathbed confessions.
yeah.
The podcast listeners, they're not going to have seen that I just did an eyebrow raise. But
Felt it.
yeah. So yes, so that's what we're going to be talking about because Heather sort of briefly mentioned it when we were talking about her books, and we were like, well, this is really interesting. So we need to do a bit of research, and off we went, didn't we? Old
Yeah.
Pod Lisa got on the case with a bit of research,
Did,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
decided to all come back together and talk about it. So Heather, tell us a bit about why you were sort of interested in deathbed confessions. What was the first thing you read that kind of
I think
hooked you?
for me, it's very much linked to because my books feature a true crime podcaster investigating cold cases. So I'm quite preoccupied with cases that kind of haunt people that haven't been solved, that maybe go on for years and years. And I think when I was on before, we talked about the Ben Needham case about the little boy who went missing in Greece. And it had been years and years and years. They sort of thought all kinds of things might have happened to him, abduction, his parents have been hoping he's found alive. And then there was this story about a confession that actually there may have been an accident all those years before. So that kind of, I suppose, got me interested. I also listened to quite a few podcasts, and maybe we can come on to this, but there's one about an American serial killer who killed people. He's like the railroad killer, and he killed people by the railway lines. His name was Resendez, and he made some confessions later on in his life to a journalist, actually. So these things are kind of bubbling in the back of my mind. I think a lot of the time, I guess it might be the same for you when you write things. It's like an amalgamation of all these sorts of little ideas and things that have disturbed you or haunted you in some way. And this is very much one of those for me.
Mm. It's I mean I did my research too regarding sort of deathbed confessions. I came up with some really interesting information. I mean, one of the stories that I came across was a guy that confessed to a murder and then got better.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Now, wouldn't
no.
that be like your luck?
Oh, wow. I've read quite a few where, because deathbed confessions do seem to center less around murder and more around illegitimate children and parentage of children. So I have definitely read also a couple of where somebody confessed on the deathbed that they'd fathered other children or something, and then, like you say, got better and had to deal with the fallout for their wife finding
Yeah.
out.
Step up and do
Um,
some parenting then. Like doing it
yeah,
on your deathbed. That's no good. They might
yeah,
get a little bit of something out of a will if there is any, but you've
yeah.
just you've just got out of years of child support and hard work,
Yeah,
frankly.
exactly. But what happened with this murder one? That sounds
Oh, he was
crazy.
then,
Yeah.
brought to justice on it, basically. But the thing
Yeah.
is, it's whether or not. So in the UK, the legalities around deathbed confessions in the UK are quite interesting because it is effectively hearsay evidence. because that
Yes.
person is not around anymore. They can't be questioned on a stand, and also they can't be that they if it's a confession that affects another person, let's say someone confessed to doing a murder with a partner, that
Mm,
partner has the right to address their accuser in court. And of course, if
right.
that person is dead,
We
there's
can't.
no. It's a real sticky wicket when you get into the legalities around it. Um, I've got a number of friends who are ex-police, and I kind of posed the question to them, and
Yeah.
they said that they were always told. So sometimes they do like get to people that are dying, accidents,
Yes.
attacks, things like that. And they said that if somebody says something to them as they're dying, that is legit, that they can take that further. But it's like, still, because I mean, Lisa, you might be able to weigh on this, the psychology of the whole thing.
Well, the thing from a legal perspective, I think the thing you were suggesting is they can't be cross-examined, can they? So they
Mm,
can't be drilled down on what it is they've just said. You've literally, as you say, it's hearsay. You've just got what they've said. So any cases where it has been a true deathbed confession that has then been evidenced, maybe by taking DNA and then looking at DNA from the crime scene and linking it up that way. Yeah, well, I suppose there's nothing else to lose, is there? You know your life's coming to an end. You might suddenly decide you want to get on the right side of somebody upstairs. If you've suddenly decided that there's somebody upstairs and you want to get on the right side of them, you might make a confession of something that's haunted you, that sat with you for a long time. But on the flip side of that, if you are dying and you are actively in the active phase of dying, who know like you're not sound of mind,
mm,
Yeah.
you could, depending what has ailed you, you could be, you might not know what you're saying, you might not know what's going on anymore, you might be saying anything, you might be confusing things and crossing things over. And then the other kind of psychological aspect to it is if kind of you're dying and you think, oh, I haven't done nothing with my life, here's like a last ditch attempt to get some infamy,
Mm,
to say something that you did that maybe you didn't.
that's
But you
very
thought,
dark.
oh, I'd like to get a little bit of, yeah, yeah. It's not going to matter now, so I might as well throw that cat amongst the pigeons and see what happens. Well, I won't see what happens. That's exactly
That's
it.
really disturbing. I guess, although they're not always legally admissible, I suppose often these are cases where they don't know what's happened to people. So, in a way, some sort of conviction is almost secondary to finding out where a body is or what happened to somebody. So, I suppose they're useful from that point of view. And the other thing is perhaps the deathbed confession isn't related to yourself, but might be information that you know that you've concealed. And maybe there is still somebody out there. But like you say, I mean, there was a case in like 1928, I think, a 16-year-old girl went missing, and she was called Emma Alice Smith. And then in the 50s, somebody confessed a deathbed confession to having killed her and dumped her and her bike in a pond. But then they found out, the police investigated on the basis of this, and then they discovered that actually she'd eloped and she
oh,
wasn't a murder victim. And so that's just bizarre. And obviously, you then can't ask the person who's made this deathbed confession what on earth was going through their mind, whether it was malicious or, they were kind of not of sound mind at the end of their life. It's very odd, that one, I think.
there's plenty of people that make false confessions, though, just for
Yeah.
generally anything and everything. I mean, every time you get a serial killer in the news, you'll get 20 idiots knocking on the police's door claiming to be that serial killer. I mean, that's one of the main reasons that police will not give the whole investigation out to the press, so they can
Yes.
have, certain evidence to test people's confessions against and people's information. But the whole kind of the concept to me was just fascinating because I guess like you were saying, Lisa, it depends on the kind of the mentality of the person, and that there's just so many factors. There's, what they believe in religious wise, because obviously if they are like Catholic, they're going to confess to everything as quick as they can to, hopefully a priest, but I guess whoever works if you don't have the time for it. And then you've got the fact that there are people that perhaps want that infamy. There's plenty of people. I mean, social media's turned everyone thirsty. There's that kind of side to it. But there's also the side of the just the I guess the like you said, sort of trying to get right with things. is the other side, even if they're not religious. I mean, I don't know whether you guys had heard this, but when Jimmy Savile was found, his body, he had his fingers crossed.
Oh no, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, which is just horrific on so many levels. But yeah, and he was a staunch Catholic and he died alone. That's one bonus there. But yeah,
Yeah.
he died alone, but he died with his fingers crossed, obviously hoping that he'd done enough good to out. Because I mean, to me, all the good that he did, all the money that he raised for charity was very much just to alleviate his conscience for all the horrible things he did.
Yeah, and I think these deathbed confessions, ultimately, I would say usually quite selfish acts because, if you were a practicing Catholic, presumably you would have confessed before you were deathbed. It feels to be very much like a hedging your bets because you don't know what's beyond and you want to kind of, go with a clean slate for selfish reasons rather than because a family needs answers. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions and there are things that have weighed really heavily on people, but yeah, I'm skeptical, I have to say, about the deathbed confession. And I also think they leave a lot of chaos in their wake.
Mm.
Because, and this is really common with serial killers, I think, who confess to things, change their minds, give some details, don't give others. People like Fred West, who confessed and seemed kind of happy to confess various crimes, is supposed to have killed more people, but hung himself without kind of giving everybody the full picture. So that's, I think a very selfish act. And what can you trust them? Because this is another feature of this railroad killer, Resendez, who, killed, I think was convicted of killing a certain number of people, maybe 9 is in my head, I might have that wrong. But, is thought to have killed a lot more and confessed to a journalist. There's tape of him sort of telling a journalist that he killed other people. And it's strongly suspected that there are some people in prison who for murders that they didn't commit because they were convicted when it was actually this guy. But then the state killed him because he died by lethal injection. So I find that really horrifying that the state, well, I find death penalty horrifying anyway, but I find it particularly awful that they would kill somebody without having extracted all the information that that person might have, because there are families out there that will now never have answers. And these are wild places between Mexico and America where he supposedly found people, murdered them, dumped them in isolated parts of the country where they'll probably never be found without him having revealed their location. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff around deathbed confessions that makes me really uneasy.
It's hard as well because those kind of serial killers, they're clearly evil. From their soul outwards, they are dark and horrible people. And are they trustworthy in that fact? I mean, I think is it Samuel Little that is doing portraits of all his victims, like really crass, childish looking portraits, and putting them out, like feeding them out in a bid for attention, to say, okay, well, keep me around a little bit longer and I'll give you a little bit more. And they use it as a commodity then to like extend their life if there is the death penalty.
Yes.
Which
Yes, and
again, is that
also,
right? It's
and also people like, Myra Hindley
mm,
promising, to show Winnie where Keith's body was before she died, and she never did. And, almost tormenting, it's like a further crime, tormenting the family without giving them the answers that they needed and dying without those answers. I think there are so many cases of serial killers who take those secrets with them to the grave. So yeah.
I suppose the other thing with the deathbed confession is the other person who heard it.
yeah.
Whether it was,
Yeah.
if it's recorded, that's one thing, but you've got to think about who's heard it, because if the person's then died, the other person who supposedly heard this deathbed confession could go and say, this is what they said, but who's to evidence that? Because unless it's somebody like a known serial killer that you might be people might be literally listening at the bedside thinking maybe they might say something in the last moments. But in the case of Ben Needham, I think it was just some guy who'd worked on the construction site, and I think it came from somebody else, didn't it, who said
Yes.
this is what he said before he passed. So we don't know. There's no, it could be that person's got a little bit of a vendetta against this, or they did it and now they're seeing their opportunity to pin it on someone else who won't be able to defend themselves.
Yeah, and that was all really suspicious as well because this witness had also remembered the man on the day after the little boy went missing, Ben Needham went missing, and remembers him shaking and being really, disturbed and something was clearly wrong. And you do just think, why didn't why didn't you come forward then? Why have you waited until this man's dead? Like like you say, what's going on
Well,
there?
that makes
Um,
me think more that they did know all along
mm,
and
I
that they
know,
all covered it up and then
it's
just
horrible.
decided to, yeah, tell it at the end for the family, but after they'd already lived their life with him without him
Mm.
facing any consequences.
But has that been proven? Because did they actually find the little boy's body?
No, no, they found a toy car. So I think they searched twice. The first time that they searched, they didn't find anything. The second time, they found a toy car, which was the car that Ben had with him. So it's so much time has passed. It's really hard to know what might have happened. So there's still no conclusive answers for the family. I think it's more just that the balance of probability is that that's likely what happened. Um,
I mean, it's
and you know,
almost like a curse, isn't it? If you and the person that's dying are on your own, like you were saying, Lisa, and they pass this information on to you, what are you going to do with it? Do you know if it's real? Do you know if you should? Does it then open up a can of worms for you in terms of you having to go to the police, and that's years of your life then sucked away by, interviews and trying to sort things out, and you just kind of think, oh God, it's a minefield.
Shh, don't say it. Shh. Just no, I don't want to know. I don't,
I
I've
heard
got lots to
nothing.
do. I'm
take it
getting
with
married
you.
next year. I can't be dealing with this for the foreseeable. Thank you very much.
But then it would
Or you
eat
might
at
be,
you, though, wouldn't it? It would,
yeah.
if you're a proper normal person, like, I'm hoping we all three are, and everyone who
Yeah.
listens to us is, it would eat you alive. It would be like every thought and the anxiety would just
Although
be there.
I'd be chomping at the bit if it was some sort of case that had
No, yeah,
kind of
what
got
we
stuck in my crow, If it was the answer to Datloff Pass or where Madeleine McCann is, I would be running straight from that place. He's going, I've got a confession, I need to tell you this. Not mine,
Yeah.
it's not my confession, it's someone else's, but
I don't know. I don't think you've thought through the ramifications there, the
I
scrutiny you'd
know,
be
but I
under,
just wanna,
your
I just
family would
want
be
to,
under.
like I say, I just want to offer the families,
Yeah.
like I just,
Yeah.
as a true crime enthusiast, I'd want to know the answers, but I'd also, to be able for the McCanns to know where
Mm.
she is after all this time. Same for Ben Needham, isn't it? Like for his family to know where he
Yeah.
is just to be able to answer that for them and finally close that chapter. So also people like true crime enthusiasts can stop talking about it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we just find it intolerable, don't we? Not knowing. I think that's a really hard thing as humans to kind of get our heads around, especially today when we've
Mm.
got so much science and there are cameras everywhere and things are recorded everywhere. And just this idea of not knowing and not being able to find out. I mean, somebody knows, someone always knows something. So, yeah, that's one thing that really affects me in the books that I write is this idea that somebody out there knows something, and it's just finding that person and getting them to talk.
Well, in my research, as you do, I homed in on the case that I love the most, which is Jack the Ripper. And there was an almost deathbed confession in that case.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah. So apparently, and I mean, I'm going to pull it apart the minute I say it, but this guy called Dr. Neil Thomas Cream, who he was hung on the 15th of November, 1892, so well after the murders, for poisoning four prostitutes in London. And
Wow.
just as he was being hanged, he said, "I am Jack," and then the trap fell. So he never got to finish it.
Wow.
Now,
trying to think what else he could be saying. I am jacked up. I am he gold or something in his cell before he went out to be hung.
Oh,
I don't know. It could have been Jack could have been the start of a word, or he could have been
Yeah,
just saying it again, like you said, Lisa, just for more infamy. Because to me,
yeah.
a poisoner is not a ripper.
No, it's a
they
very,
are
very
very
different.
different methods, you
Yeah,
know?
I think that's a different MO. And that smacks of trying to, having no control at the end of your life. And what's the one thing you can do just before you go is mess with everybody. So,
Mm.
I mean, he
mm,
never got it all out, so maybe we're kind of well, I mean, he killed four prostitutes, he killed four women regardless,
mm,
but he never got the whole thing out. So unless he'd suffered some kind of physical injury that made it impossible for him to hold a knife or do the physical part, and so then he turned to poisoning to kind of satisfy his murder hunger. But I don't see any evidence of that. But yeah, he
I
said, "I am Jack," and then oof, he fell.
Maybe he befriended a jackdaw while he was incarcerated and he was really worried about who was going to feed it after he was gone. He said, I am Jackdaw. And yeah, I am a jackdaw
Fan.
maybe
funny,
I'm
is what he was
Jackdaw's
going to
dad.
say. Yeah, I'm
Oh, I'm
Jackdaw's
Jackdaw's
dad.
dad. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe he was I mean, you said like children and that. Maybe he was claiming an illegitimate
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
child. I am
Oh,
Jack's father.
yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. We
I'm
will
still
never
thinking Jack
know.
the Ripper, though. Yeah. Naming illegitimate children. Oh, I mean, I've got images now of him feeding a little jackdaw at his window and becoming its little dad,
Yeah, well, he'd have
jackdaw
poisoned
dad.
it though, wouldn't he? Surely that's his MO.
No sensible jackdaw would take any
No,
No.
cues from
he
that.
would have trained it to fly out and drop it on other people,
Oh
drop
God,
things
yeah.
into people's ice creams or something while
How
they're out and about.
how
And
could he
he
have
was
done that
poisoning from his cell, poisoning from beyond the grave because he passed on
using the
his tricks.
medium of birds?
I mean, it's original.
It is, but that's the kind of thing that would be torn apart by an editor.
Yeah, it's not going in a book anytime soon, is it? It wouldn't be very
Another of
important.
those times where I make it quite clear that I'm not an author with my wild ideas.
Well, I found another couple as I was on my
Ooh.
travels, so I'll throw you what I have. So tell me if you've heard it before. So apparently Reggie Cray, the East End gangster on his deathbed, admitted to committing. That's almost a poem. Admitted to committing a murder. Um, he simply said something like 1-1, and the police believe he was referring to this guy called Mad Teddy, who disappeared in 1967. I think it's tenuous, and I think this
It
shows.
sounds.
Yeah,
Mm,
it was the one he was imprisoned for was killing a guy called Jack the Hat McVitie, which again
yes.
we've got the Jack in there. But yeah, I kind of feel like that should have come under like hearsay stuff,
There's
that
almost this sort of mythology around this, isn't there? Like
mm,
kind of that moment of death and what it means and what people see and what if that's a moment of truth. It's funny, isn't it? It's almost as if we have to have some story around. It's not enough for somebody to just die. We have to have a last minute confession or something significant.
but
Or
also
to
there's
put
oh, go on, Liz.
I was going to say, or to put weight in those words in the
Mm,
final moments of someone's life when they could be seeing anything in their mind, they could be feeling, and he could have been saying, "Put the painkiller up to 11, please," because
yeah,
like I think, yeah, it's putting a bit of, and again, that's that thing about because it was Reggie Cray dying, are we suddenly putting a lot more weight on his final words than we would? Just somebody else, an
yeah,
unknown person passing.
And also saying 1-1, he could have been just in his mind reliving a football match or something.
Yeah.
You just don't know what was, because
yeah,
they were the only people around him. And also, I kind of always have in the back of my mind that the police are human at the end of the day, and there are good ones and there are bad ones, and there are lots and lots in between. And the police are under a lot of pressure to solve certain murders. So could
Oh
they,
yeah.
whether they
no,
And
do
pop
it
that on him as
consciously or
well.
not, yeah, think, well, he's dying anyway. It's not going to make any difference, and we can get this off our desk. You just don't know, do you? You've got to think around every kind of eventuality, and that
I
could be the
think
case.
I think it's probably more likely as well that there are certain individuals who we can be pretty sure have done more than they're telling us. So probably it's particularly interesting around those kinds of people as to what they might say. I mean, there was a case last year in the US, I think a man called Larry Webb, who police had already been looking into in the months before he died, for killing a mother and daughter who'd been lodgers with him. I think something like 24 years before, 24 years ago. And on his deathbed, he did it. So it didn't get to court in time before he died, but he did confess that he killed them and he told them where the bodies were. And they found the bodies that same day. So I suppose that's a recent example of a deathbed confession that they probably were going to find out some way, but clearly he unburdened himself just at the last minute.
And
They were
also,
probably there to get it in some way, weren't they? I bet they were hanging around
Yes.
mm,
thinking, because they've already got so much evidence and suspicion, so they're literally just looking through the last few pieces of the puzzle to complete the
Yeah,
picture for them.
and
definitely.
you've got, I mean, the case in the States with Henry Lee Lucas. He confessed to murders that there was no way he could have done. I mean, he was a killer. He did kill people, but he confessed like the Orange Socks murder, which he was nowhere near that state. He had an alibi effectively for it. And he was doing it just to get milkshakes off the police officers because whenever he'd make a confession, they'd buy him a McDonald's or something, or other fast food chains are available, and off he'd go. He'd enjoy his snacks and confess to murders that he's being fed information on.
And they took him out, didn't they? They took him to different
Yeah, they
locations.
took him on little
So,
joy rides all over the place. I mean, he got out of prison, he got a lovely meal, he got a bit more
mm.
notoriety. It was a
And
win-win-win.
if I'm right, they sort of discovered that he was sort of studying these cases, and a lot of the things that he was basing his confessions off were actually just details that were out there, and he was sort of creating these false confessions and leading everybody on a merry dance. And it took him quite a long time, didn't it? He confessed to a lot of murders before he started to realize, hang on, this isn't actually
Quite
plausible.
good. I mean, I'm surprised it took them quite so long. I mean, kudos for him for doing his research. If you're gonna lie, you might as well do your research around it. But surely, did someone not go? It's just he really likes a Big Mac and
Yeah.
a vanilla
But also, I think
milkshake.
he started sort of conflicting, didn't he? And he was saying one thing that couldn't have fitted with something else he'd said, and he definitely couldn't have been on there on that day. So
Mm.
it did all fall apart fairly rapidly when they discovered that.
But once again, with the police, consciously or not, they were probably feeding him bits and bobs of information,
Well,
whether they meant
literally, they
to or
were.
not.
They
Yeah,
were literally feeding
depends how
him.
well, and it depends on how well trained they are in these kind of situations, because there's a lot of police again that, you've just got to watch some interview tapes to see them leading witnesses and leading stuff. And maybe, like I said, they don't even mean to, but because that's that they've got that confirmation bias in their head as to this guy's the one or that guy's the one, and they saw something that can help us, that sometimes
Yeah.
they just kind of perhaps get carried away with wanting to do justice because again they're just human at the end of the day too.
Mm. And
Yeah, I've
this
been
guy's a
doing
bad guy, so why not?
Yeah.
They already know you're horrible. So, anything you say, I'm gonna kind of also think, yeah, you were capable of that as well.
But what a cottage industry you could create. So if you were like a broker, let's say, and you had one pot of people that were going to die and then one pot of very guilty people, and then, you know, the two pots come together with your, monetary assistance.
confessions are us.
Confessions are us, definitely. And it'd be
Yeah, so
like
I've been
like
doing a bit
the
of
giraffe
research
of
into
kids are us. With it, she's
yeah,
going,
I've been doing a bit of research into false confessions because I'm really interested in them. And my latest, well, the book that I'm working on at the moment, I'm interested in why people might confess to things they haven't done, and how people want to please people, perhaps, or they're put in situations where they're exhausted and they're kind of given an exit, an easy out. So I suppose the deathbed confession is like the final exit, isn't it? Maybe it's a moment where you can, yeah, everyone's listening to you and your final words if you're a potential serial killer and they think you've done something. So you either get to unburden yourself and have a clean slate and go off to, whatever's next, or you get to mess with people and plant something that will perplex people for years to come and you've disappeared off.
well, talking about that, there was another case that I came across. This guy called Alexander Gartshaw in Scotland. So in 1999, he gave a deathbed confession to his daughter, of all people, that he was a one and done killer. So he had abducted and murdered a young girl called Moira Anderson in 1957. So I mean, you're talking quite some time back,
Wow.
over 40 years. And her remains had never been found, and that he had been guilt-ridden with this until the end of his days. But it's like there was still nothing. That he couldn't he said he did it, but there was no evidence he'd done it. He'd obviously cleaned it up, and there was so much time in between. And in 57 there wouldn't have been any DNA or anything to be able to keep for the case. So his poor daughter then would have gone on thinking, was my dad a killer?
Mm. What a thing
Not
to tell your family member just as you go.
not too guilt-ridden to go ahead and have a family of your own, having murdered somebody
Murdered a
else's
young
child.
girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so guilt-ridden that I'm going to tell you now because I'm about to escape the guilt, to be fair. But I'm about to escape all of these feelings because I'm about to cross over. So, yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
That's a
And
really,
it,
yeah, it's very selfish in many ways, isn't it? That one, just waiting to that moment and then leaving everyone else to deal with it.
But he'd
mm,
kept it for, like I said, he'd kept it for 40 years. And that kind of the one and done killers I find them quite fascinating because they're not as salacious as a serial killer because they wanted to do it. They had it in their head to kill someone. They planned it out. They did it, but it wasn't as good as they thought it was going to be, or it was a pain to clean up, or they got too anxious about it, and so they never did it again. So that's the one and done. But I'm betting there's a lot of one and done killers out there that perhaps murders haven't been attributed to. But it's much harder to catch them if they've only killed one. Obviously, the more murders that happen, the more likely the police are to get a clue to be able to track it to the right person. So if you kill one rando, you're probably not going to get caught.
Mm. I guess there must be very few people who kill a stranger who then stop and don't carry on.
Mm.
I would guess most people who kill one person have had some sort of argument with a particular person, or, they know this person.
yeah, mostly it's known, isn't it? But to actually plan something and then pluck somebody out of thin air, choose somebody who's vulnerable and do it in the way that serial killers might do over and over again is really bizarre, isn't it? And that didn't give them, what do they then go on for kicks? You know what I mean? If that didn't fulfill
Yeah,
the
but
desire.
maybe that's why they stop. That's it. That's as
Mm.
far as they can go, or like I said, it didn't live up to the expectation because you know what it's like. I mean, just obviously we're not fantasizing about killing
I don't
people.
know. I don't know what it's like.
You
No,
know
I'm
what
not a
it's like? Oh
woman.
my God,
No, just
no.
going to clarify that now. This
But
is not a confession.
let's take it onto a nice thing and say like a holiday. Like if you're looking forward to a holiday to, I don't know, Italy or somewhere, and you're sat there and you'll daydream about it and you'll think of all the places and you'll Google it and do you know what I mean? And you'll sit and it will be the light of your life in dark times until you go and then it's like, oh, here I am
This
on the
is it.
beach in Italy. Yeah. Now what? And it's a bit of a letdown. So I can kind of understand from that kind of point of view, maybe that's the reason why they do it. But if they do kill someone they know, they are way more likely to get caught. And everybody
Mm,
knows this now.
Yeah, I suppose as well, maybe some people who kill once perhaps did it, it's not a planned event in the same way. It might be, an excess of emotion or an argument or something, and therefore they're so horrified by what they've done that they take steps to ensure that that won't happen again. Um, I mean, it's an interesting mix of kind of control and not control, isn't it?
Yeah. And
it's
I guess as well, depending on the age of the person dying and what's actually wrong with them, because if they've got Alzheimer's or they're senile or if they're old, then they could have these things, or if they have like something wrong with their brain and that's what's killing them, then it could be just something they've imagined or seen on a film or something, and next thing you know, it's like seeped into their head, and now they're claiming that they've done it,
Yeah.
which
I
kind of
did read about a Japanese man who confessed in, I think it was just last year, he was dying of cancer in hospital. And just before he died, he told nurses that he was Satoshi Kirishima, who was a terrorist who had evaded capture for almost 50 years. And he was kind of associated with the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front. And he then died and they checked it out, and he was indeed the terrorist who had been
Blimey.
evading capture for 49 years. So, yeah, you kind of wonder why he decided to. I wonder whether there's something, if you're that sort of person, about being seen for who you really are. Um, if you've managed to keep that secret all that time, whether telling complete strangers on your deathbed is kind of almost a way of like showing your true self, if you've not shown your true self to anybody in all that time.
It could
You
be,
thought,
or it could be maybe to protect. I mean, to me, it's like maybe it's to protect somebody else, that if they stop looking for him, they won't find somebody else
mm,
or something. I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe I'm trying to put a good light on it. Or
yeah, yeah.
Well, I've got another one. I don't think we've mentioned this, the Lorraine Jacob case. So this is one where there was a deathbed confession. So a man named Richardson in Liverpool left a letter confessing to the murder of Lorraine Jacob, which was an alleyway killing in
ooh,
1970. And the details of the letter match things that would never have been mentioned publicly.
mm,
So there's a strong possibility that yes, it probably was him, but it's not enough evidence to actually get a conviction. So the case remains unsolved even to this day. So even if you do kind of get something, even if you do make a deathbed confession, and that's a letter. So I suppose there is, we've got to look at the handwriting. Was it actually him? Did somebody just leave it there? But kind of it seems unlikely. I mean, it seems like it was a sense of let's unburden, the last honest
Yes.
word. Let's do something at the end of my life.
Yeah, that seems very believable. And at least it would give the family some sort of answer. If not, I mean, you're not going to get justice anyway if the person's died, are you? So, in a way, you
No.
probably care less about a case being closed and more about knowing what happened.
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose what legally does it mean for like someone to be declared, especially if they're missing and they've never been found? I think there's a
Mm,
difference, isn't there, between actually
yes.
being declared dead in terms of a state and other things.
Yeah.
That I don't really know the details of, but I think it kind of makes a difference in that sense. But isn't it after so long of somebody
Yeah.
being missing, you
you
can.
can declare someone dead after
You
so long.
can. It's 7 years,
Mm.
isn't it? I think. But
Mm,
I think you're right. There's a really big difference between somebody confessing to a crime where there was a body in a crime scene and they just never found the killer versus somebody confessing to killing somebody who's a missing person whose remains haven't been found. And that's, you know, I think the confessions, yeah, there's two levels, isn't there? There's the I did it, and then there's the where the person's remains are, which matters a huge amount to the families.
well, apparently, I mean, from a legal aspect, the deathbed confession is hard to put into a criminal case for a number of reasons. As we've said, it's that sort of hearsay. There has to be corroborating evidence, but maybe it could open a door to a warrant of some description to perhaps
Mm.
find
Yeah.
more evidence, that we've got that side. But apparently they're used more in civil proceedings where they are readily admissible,
Ah,
rather than, yeah. And so cases, so apparently it's the Civil Evidence Act of 1995. Look at me trying to look at my notes at the same time, just so I could read that off right. Where the context is the key consideration. So it's especially pulled out of the bag for wills and inheritance
yes.
disputes and things like that.
Mm.
But there's a couple of things that has to be looked at, and that is, I would argue, are similar and in parallel to the criminal cases. So it's whether it's corroborated by evidence, it's whether it's been made voluntarily with a sound mind, and also whether it can be attributed to the deceased. Because as we've said, if there's only two people in a room and one's now dead,
Yeah.
you don't know whether or not that's actually, what they said.
Yeah. It's a very thorny issue, isn't it? The last minute change of will,
Mm.
which I'm sure does happen legitimately, but is always then going to cause massive upset and suspicion on whoever happens to have
Mm.
been there when this was supposedly agreed.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, because you've definitely got to particularly, you make a will, but it's something then you don't think about for a long time that you just forget about it. And then suddenly, if you were, and it was quite a quick, whatever happened is happening quite quickly to you and you haven't got very long, then you might suddenly make a change and go, oh gosh, what does that say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have
but
I
also
changed that since I fell out with my
you
Uncle
you
Bill?
might decide that in your sort of dying days that one of your relatives has been terrible and has, not looked after you well and has tried to make off
Yeah.
your valuables, and you might want to disinherit them quickly before you go.
Yeah. And you want to give it to the nurses and the people who have been there and cared for you, because actually in that moment as well, they're going to mean more to you than
Yeah.
your family in that moment, despite what's
Or
gone on
the cat's
before.
home. The cat's home. That's a common
Yeah.
one.
Mm. Yeah. But
Yeah,
also,
I thought it was the donkey sanctuary.
oh,
Have donkeys fallen out of favour?
oh,
Yeah, I think
bless
it.
them. And also, I think I don't know about you guys, but I tend to think deathbed confession as in somebody who is in bed dying,
Mm.
knows they're dying, is kind of dwindling along with a bit of morphine and things like that. Probably is getting old shipman. But it doesn't it there's also the confessions in terms of when something happens quite quickly and
Yes.
without much force. So like a car accident, or somebody is in or maybe it has even been attacked, and someone finds them and they're making a confession or telling them obviously what's happened, and that once
But there's
again
also,
is
I mean,
hearsay.
there's also people doing it on TV, because one
Yeah.
of the ones I found was, oh God, Mark Chopper Reed, who is an Australian criminal slash author who
Oh,
gave,
it's the movie.
yeah,
Wasn't
the
there
one
a
that
movie called Chopper about
Eric
him?
Eric
Yeah,
Bana
with
was
Eric
in.
Banner.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
and so 16 days before the guy died, he gave a TV interview and basically claimed to have killed four people, and said why he'd done it. And, I think one of them was a suicide in jail of a child killer. And he sort of openly said he was quite happy to have killed him and that he'd shot somebody else. And yeah, he did that on TV.
blimey. I mean, the next thing is social media, isn't it?
Hmm.
Someone like live streaming themselves as they're dying and doing their confession. Would not want to be the solicitor that has to wade through the legalities of
Yeah.
that.
No, not at all.
What does that evidence mean? So I got another one with a letter actually, where, like you said, Nikki, it opened up the opportunity to find some corroborating evidence. So Christopher Smith, who died in 2008, left a three-page handwritten deathbed note. That's quite nice. Not many people write these days. So he's written it out himself, and he confessed to the murder of Joan Harrison. And then they collected his DNA, um, which was just shortly before his death. So I don't know what that means, DNA, if it why they had it shortly before and not after he died. And then I suppose he has to give permission for it to be taken, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
but
And then he would have been charged. And his last line of the letter was, I can't go on with the guilt.
not anymore because he's dying.
Well, yeah, that's it. I can't,
That's
you don't
gonna
have
put an
to
end to
for much
that.
longer, mate. Yeah. But there was a conviction. Well, there was effectively a conviction, but it doesn't matter because he's dead. But he would have, had he lived, he would have been convicted of it. So
Was
Yeah.
that another one and done one then? So he'd only committed it.
I don't know.
He'd only committed
Oh,
one
yeah, I
murder, and it
don't
was a
know.
stranger. One of these that
Yeah.
thought it would be fun to be a serial
Don't
killer.
know if there's a, yeah, I don't know if there's a relationship between them or not. Whether there
Mm,
was something, because it could be a friend or it could be kind of a one and done, slightly removed, because family might be investigated very closely. But you can have friendships and relationships with people that maybe other people don't know about. So then
mm,
if something happens to that person, they might not come looking for you.
maybe, but it's a
Mm.
minefield. It really is. It's a rich bed for writing a book about. I can understand
I
why
wonder if
Heather,
there's like
you've
a
gotten in.
protocol. Like,
What?
there's got to be some sort of protocol somewhere, hasn't there, of exactly what you do if somebody says, "I'm going to
Well,
make a confession now."
the
Does
the
it just
Yeah.
go with normal confession, or is there like another angle to it that somebody would follow?
Well, things have changed technologically now. I mean, we've all got
Mm,
recording devices on
recorder.
us all the time. Yeah, so you could,
Yes.
if someone says, "I want to confess I killed someone," wouldn't the first thing you do now be to reach for your phone?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess probably the days of the nebulous hearsay deathbed confession might be over.
But even then, it's still hearsay. It's not because you can't trust the other person's kind of version of it. It's more because you can't question them. You can't,
Mm.
and you can't really tell, like you said, whether it's coming from a place of honesty, whether it's coming from a place of dishonesty, whether it's coming from a place of confusion. It could be anything. But
I
I
guess it's
find it
the
fascinating.
yeah, I suppose if they do give details that only the killer would know, if it was that kind of thing, you probably could then corroborate it quite easily afterwards.
And with the social media thing, because the thing is on social media, like I could imagine, and I'm sure it probably has happened, is I didn't come across any cases, but people of confessing things, on a live on some sort of social media platform. The thing is, the way to be seen and to get famous on a social media platform is to say things that are controversial, is to put things out there that are going to draw more clicks, so gosh, it would that gives you a certain impetus to perhaps put something out there, particularly thinking, right, I'm going to go viral before I go. This is my last ditch attempt. Let's get a video out there and see if I can
That would
gather a
be the
million
ultimate
likes.
in social media addiction, wouldn't it? Actually caring on your deathbed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can't imagine many people thinking, "Oh, I wonder how many likes I'm going to get
Yeah.
on TikTok."
And that's their final words, isn't it, to the nurse, whoever it is. How many likes?
What's
Haven't
the
gone
engagement
viral
on
yet.
my post?
What are the comments? But also from a evil standpoint as well. I mean, as I
It's where
tend to
you always
always,
stand, Nikki. I'm just
well, it
saying.
is. It's but if you were like dying from an accident or someone attacked you, and the Good Samaritan person runs to your help, and you're gonna, you deep down, you're not gonna survive the ambulance. You could just say, "My ex did it," whether they did or not. The kind of Gone Girl revenge.
You could land someone else in it
Yeah,
totally,
that
couldn't you?
that's their life, like effed for
Mm.
years, and maybe like to the end of their life, because they would always have that hanging over them that they did that, unless they had like a solid alibi. But
It was my high school bully.
yeah.
It was it was this person who picked on me on the way home from school every day. Make their life miserable.
Well, you could.
It was the person who cut in front of me in the queue in Starbucks.
They got the last muffin.
They stole my muffin.
Yeah.
It was
I
double
only know
chocolate chip.
I only know their first name. It was Bob.
But it was spelt with a heart in the middle. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't you? Because like I said, I know the spoiler alert with Gone Girl, but it is the kind of, you could revenge it if you were thinking quick enough and it was still on your mind. They'd just broken up with you or something. You just thought, you know what? I'm gonna land them right in it.
Yep, definitely.
There's some sort of mentality, isn't it?
It is.
That's the last thought.
Yeah.
Not of the people you love, somebody who's pissed you
No,
off. So why
being
not? Yeah.
to someone else. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of sort of use what you got. Every problem's an opportunity.
We'll know now if there's a deathbed confession from you. Just take it with a massive pinch of
Yeah,
salt.
Heather's gonna be like, no, no,
If you refer back to this podcast
no. Yeah.
recording of 2025,
At least you'll be like, hearsay. But let's go on social media and have a look.
Oh no, I'd be all over that, putting that on our social media to try and get us generate some clicks. I'd be telling you, I'd go to a seance and go, Nikki, we
we
finally went viral.
we we
Thanks.
So for that, I have a safe word with all my friends and family. But if they want to do a seance when I die, so they know it's me talking.
Oh,
So
okay.
when we finish recording, Lise, And Heather, I'm going to give it to you. So
Okay.
if anything happens to me and you
What does
feel the need to
say on
to go on a kind of,
Use the seance safe word.
yeah, you use the seance safe word, and you'll know it's me then, and then you'll
Is
have
it
evidence.
jelly?
No,
Is it bananas?
no.
Is
And this,
it
we've not got the time for you to go through every word you think I might say. But
is
yes,
it
I'll
peanuts?
no. But it's very similar to my normal safe words, which you probably don't even remember. So if I was
No,
in trouble,
I'm
I
not.
certainly
I'm
wouldn't
not
ring
in your
you.
inner circle, Nikki.
You are.
I don't have. You never deemed me responsible enough to have a copy of your "If I Go Missing" folder.
There's only
So
one folder.
I don't think I've got any of the safe
You
words,
know
you
where it
know.
is, as do all the listeners and viewers, just in case I do go missing. They can find my information, so they can find me quicker. Look, just in case.
This has all gone a bit meta now because we've come very, very close to Heather's books with a
Yeah.
podcast
Yeah.
investigating a
Yes.
crime. Because that's
Crazy
how
true
I'd have
crime
to go
podcast.
on, Nikki. I'd have to go on with your. I'd be recording episodes with your folder going, Nikki's gone missing, help me.
Yeah.
This is now a true crime podcast.
Justice.
I
Justice for Nikki.
I fear that I fear that Heather's notes probably read Lisa, thirsty on social media. Nikki, don't trust.
Don't trust. Do
And
not
that's all
trust
she's
this
written,
woman.
yeah.
Yeah.
Suspicious.
Suspicious. Evil minds think alike.
Oh, just thinking about what I might confess if I was facing the end. I
Well,
did eat
spoiler
all.
alert.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did eat all the happy hippos, the Kinder happy hippos. I think I lied and said I didn't. I told the kids that we just didn't have any, but I'd eaten them all.
You see, I think I'm quite an open book. I don't think I have any. I'm probably guilty of oversharing. I don't think I'm going to have any deep, dark secrets left to confess on.
Ah,
Deathbed.
boo!
So Heather's going to be like, I need to confess. Oh, actually, no, I'm good.
Actually,
No,
just all.
I'm all good. No, I'm
Couldn't
okay.
keep it to myself.
Heavenly gates are opening. It's all good.
I see the lights. It's all good.
Safe word is ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say unsafe word.
Well, I'll tell you when and probably we should stop recording now anyway because we're well over our time.
Yes.
We got deep into the
Weird
deathbed.
warrens do
Yeah,
go deep, though,
So
don't they?
very
We
weird.
do that. I think we
they go
always think of
twisty.
these topics and then they sort of we go scurry, and just keep
Yeah,
going.
and they just never end. But before we do go, I would like to say, obviously, Heather has books, although
Yes.
I think there's probably then one coming out soon, hopefully, with some sort of confession
Yes.
involved. Mhm.
So that will probably be out next year. That's the one I'm writing at the moment. It will be the fifth Cal Lovett novel. And the
Ooh.
fourth one, Unknown, is out summer 2025. So yes, it is probably another year till that one will be making its little
All
way
right.
into the world.
So you'll be
A lot of
hanging
work.
around the rabbit hole, ready to be sacked
I will.
and pulled in.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah. Well, Lisa's
Walking
getting a bit
past the
lazy.
front, just going la 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 la. Oh, how I like to write while I'm out walking.
Oh, look, Saka, just get in.
Oh, look, she's left a sack here. Gotcha.
No, gotcha. Yeah, that's not. We're like, oh, again. Okay. Yeah. So, thank you, viewers and listeners, for sticking with us on that weird Warren. I think we brought up quite a few topics there, didn't we? And a lot of interesting information. So, if you want to look up deathbed confessions, there's many out there for you to look up. We literally just tip of the iceberged it for you. And you can find us on socials, which of course Lisa is very thirsty for you to do, as we've discovered as well. So
all over it, making controversial topics, making it anything out of what we say. I try and make controversial
fun little
as possible.
memes. We've got many a meme.
Yes.
And you can follow the Red Rabbit on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, I believe. And of course YouTube. Hey!
YouTube. Please
YouTube.
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. It costs you nothing and helps us. And obviously Lisa needs this, or we don't know what she's going to do next.
She lies awake at night wondering how many views we've had. But that's not even a lie. That's quite nice.
No, I know. I get the text. So we'd like to thank author Heather Critchlow again for coming down the red rabbit hole, and we will see her soon. Yay.
Yeah, thank you for having me in the rabbit hole again. It's very nice
That's
to be here.
okay.
Thank you
I'll
for
make
coming
sure,
back.
yeah, and I'll make sure to include all your book links as well for this episode.
Thank
So
you.
if anyone's interested, then they can have a wee look and see what you've written, and keep an
Brilliant.
eye out for your new book.
Thank
Watch this
you.
space. So thank you everyone for sticking with us. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.